Let's take up the story of Stalin.
Mm.
Beginning with Lenin, beginning with this Russian Tsar system.
Mm.
So, World War One kind of breaks out when the Tsar of Russia, along with his family, is brutally murdered.
Yeah.
That also begins the Russian Revolution. Sort of the face of the Russian Revolution, the main leader is Lenin. And he is all about what philosophy?
Look, technically, so Lenin described communism as Marxism plus electricity.
What is Marxism?
Marxism is this idea that this gentleman called Marx comes up with, which is, there are 4 elements of production, right? Capital, entrepreneurship, labor, and land. He says all the rest are unimportant. The only real value addition here is labor, and therefore labor must have collective power. That's the basics of it. Now, he also believes that when this happens, humanity will reach this utopia. And they believe that everything has a scientific explanation, when in fact, things don't have a scientific. Humanity is very tough to predict, right? Now, to this, Lenin adds energy and industry and all of that. Now, remember, Lenin is one of the biggest traitors to Russia around. Because when his country was fighting the Germans put him in a train car and sent him over to Russia to weaken Russia and destroy it. And the moment he gains power, Russia, the allies were just 6 months away from victory. But because he wanted power to himself, he signs a horrible peace treaty with Germany called the Brest-Litovsk Pact, which gives Germany everything it wanted. Germany would have collapsed in 6 to 8 months. Everybody knew it was going to collapse in 6 to 8 months because the shortages had set in, the reverses had set in. But no, he wanted power now because he realized till he got power right now, he couldn't eliminate all the other factions. So Lenin was in fact the true father of Stalin in that sense, ideological father, because he was brutal. He didn't care what he did to his own country and countrymen as long as power, 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 power. Power hungry beyond belief. Now, he holds an election in which his party gets 17 or 20% of the vote. He didn't even get the largest share. I think it was the Mensheviks who got another faction which got the largest. He then declares the entire election irrelevant and he cancels the election. So they actually had an election after the Tsar was overthrown. The results were negated. It was declared irrelevant and Bolshevik party rule, Communist party rule, was institutionalized. So and all the massacres that Stalin is famous for, it was actually Lenin that started these massacres, horrible massacres. The Tsar's family was killed on Lenin's orders. Completely extrajudicial execution. I mean, it's a different thing if the Tsar deserved it or not. The Tsar was a horrible, horrible fellow, right? I mean,
why?
Incompetent, but believed in his great competency, felt he was guided by God to rule over Russia. So it didn't matter how many people died, he was always right and everybody else was always wrong.
Okay, got it.
And, had Lenin not come and been such a crazy whack job, and Stalin was an even crazier whack job, we're talking about relatively. Compared to these other two, the Tsar wasn't so bad. And that is why you think of him as a good Tsar right now. Right? He was a nasty fellow. At his coronation, his uncle didn't arrange the coronation properly. So some 5 to 15,000 people, depending on the account, died in stampedes and things, which is why he was always known as the Bloody Tsar. He never punished his own uncle for bungling that entire issue. And he was always known as he was considered a bad omen. It was bound to happen at that point. Terrible fellow. But then people didn't realize how much worse Lenin and Stalin were. But the way this whole leftist sort of whitewashing factory works is they'll tell you, Tsar was very, very bad, which is true. He was very, very bad. But Lenin and Stalin were a lot worse. The redeeming feature, at least of Stalin, was that he industrialized Russia. Forcibly, horrible, huge cost. But that's something the Tsar could never do.